You know how in a zombie film like 28 Days Later, how the people in the film never call the zombies zombies. They instead say the infected or the virus. This concept is called genre blindness. Usually, it's referring to when a person in a type of media doesn't understand the typical terms or tropes that align to that genre of media they're in. Oftentimes, genre blindness can be used to set a series apart from others like it and still give it room to expand on what they do with different tropes. It's often an easy way for a writer to cause a more unique situation that's still believable or make a plot that's not to our preconceived expectation from the genre. So with a zombie movie, they could have no concept of the term zombie because they don't know what a zombie is at all. Therefore, they don't call them zombie. This concept can also be applied to any type of story, not just a movie. Genre blindness could be applied to the people or a world of a video game, and usually to some extent it does. Much like how in fantasy games, when people use telepathy and not call it telepathy, instead they'll say, like, the voice or midichlorians, whatever that means. And to an even smaller extent, genre blindness can be found with games like God of War or Zelda. Our player character doesn't possibly know that there's a prize behind that half broken wall with conveniently different looking rocks, but the player does. This is because of the video game genre teaching us that exploring the map is probably worth it. While in our character's point of view, they have no clue that something useful is behind that wall. They probably don't even know that wall is able to be broken, but us, the player, does. This is because of the tropes in the genre. Now, genre blindness is found in most games, but this game here might be the exception. This game is called Funi Racoon Game. Let me repeat that. Funi Racoon Game. Funi Raccoon Game. I'm sorry, but just looking at this trailer for the game, and I could have told you this was going to be one of the silliest, maybe goofiest, frankly dumbest games I have ever heard of. So of course I had to buy it. As of writing this, I have about 6 hours in the game, and that was more than enough to fully beat the game and start the attempt of 100%ing this project. It was $10 on release and made by this small indie developer, and I'm just going to run through all the main ideas this game tries to implement and how it's used throughout the first section and the tutorial. So the game starts off with a loading screen of an old PC monitor with many little critters of varying color running on top. Each is carrying their own monitor above their head. When the camera pans down to the larger monitor screen and it tells you to load into one of the provided raccoons with funny names like Carcinogen, Critter, or Aldrin. So you pick a character, and then the camera pans up to the raccoon you've just selected, zooms into the PC monitor that they are carrying above their head, and you are loaded into this odd world of one repeating skybox texture and tutorial instructions on billboards, next to talking stone heads like the ones found on Easter Island. Just from this introduction, the game is unlike anything I have played previously. The attention to detail in every small animation, the way the world is designed, like it's trying to make us feel that the sole purpose of its existence is being a game as opposed to fitting into a story or world. Everything is entirely unique, from how they choose to represent cars moving to how they want the world to actually feel and play. Usually in a game, even one meant to be silly or innately funny, the actual movement of an object is not changed, but the object is distorted in some unusual way. For this game, though, it's the exact opposite. The object will be the same as to real life, even occasionally just being a rotating image of the object it's trying to represent. But the movement of the object is different or unnatural to how it is in real life. This is what causes a sense of humor for that specific object. For example, if you continue in the tutorial level, you will find a moving car as an obstacle. The humor that comes from the object's movement is that it's a poorly rendered JPEG of a car. It practically flies around to these preset points whilst spinning. The option to make this a car tells us, the player, that if we touch this, something will occur, some sort of repercussion, which is what happens. If you're hit by this car, you're sent flying in almost any direction, and a gif of an explosion with a silly noise will play on the site of the collision. This is one small effect. It is simple, yet so effective. The car alone tells us that it is something dangerous or something to avoid. The impact reinforces this idea, but the funny GIF that's being played also gives us, the player, the idea that this is still a lighthearted event, which is further proven by our character flying off in a seemingly random direction. With just 2 image files and maybe 10 lines of code, they have told us that this is a lighthearted game with the emphasis on just having fun as opposed to any concrete story or physical repercussions. The game alone is trying to take the most common of video game tropes and do the exact opposite. This one interaction is amazing. It sets up an expectation for how the car is going to work, and then when it follows through on the expectation, it's hilarious just by emphasizing a few key details. As we can see, this level of turning the tables on pre-made expectations is what this game is trying to do. This style of humor is kept up through the main story, with you being able to pick up an entire gym, for example, after working out once, or finding a giant flying statue that asks you for an unregistered firearm as payment to travel to a world made out of an endless sea and windmills. Why? Through the story, the game stays unpredictable, and yet it follows through on its own type of logic. It's similar to the real world, but just different enough that it's funny. I have been playing video games for a long time, and I have never played a game that I would recommend as highly as this one, except for maybe Breath of the Wild or Dying Light. But in recommending this game, I acknowledge that there is nothing like this game. The provided example, Breath of the Wild, it's a survival, story-driven game, whereas the Raccoon game is made to tell the next joke. Where Dying Light is focused on a deep story with interesting moral repercussions in a forever broken world, the Raccoon game wants you to know that nothing is permanent, yet still stays the same if you wish to revisit it. The official tags on this game's Steam page are 3D platformer, collectathon, and adventure. While none of these are technically wrong, I think the only one that is truly authentic to the genre with all of its quirks is collectathon. Yes, the game is primarily focused on adventure, on finding a new place to explore. With that being said, it never stops you from really going forward. Progressing is never really a challenge until the very end, where it asks you to collect 100 items from your previously explored worlds, which by this point in the game is not very difficult. In fact, I maybe had 80 or so items already when I got to this point in the game. As well as this, the adventure genre often tries to start you off as weak as possible, slowly building your character as you adventure, making your progress the reward for adventure. In Funi Racoon Game, the reward for adventure is new items to collect. This alone makes the game more similar to titles like Sly Cooper, with a story about running around a giant guarded labyrinth looking for pages in a book which make you better at theft, in turn better at finding the pages, compared to a game like Elder Scrolls, which is more focused on telling a fantasy narrative while letting you roleplay living in this magical world. If we compare this game to its more 3D platformer-like influences that it most definitely has, we eventually come to the realization that the 3D platformer genre could mean almost anything. The real definition of a 3D platformer is just a person or character running and jumping in a 3-dimensional world. That's about it. So for our purposes, we're going to say that if you're running and jumping around an obstacle, that would define a platformer. So for the aforementioned spinning car in the first level, that would be considered an obstacle your player could jump around to avoid. But most often in the genre, the platforming comes at a risk. When you fall off the map in Mario, you lose a life. The difference in this game is that there are no real consequences to any action. Falling off the map in this game sends your player to the start of the area, and any item you are holding along with you. Because of this, I wouldn't say that it fully fits into the platformer category. While undoubtedly it is a game that uses platformer mechanics, it does not have the underlying subtext of a punishment. I think the game lends itself to be more easily categorized as a collectathon, with all of its traits and quirks. To explain this, let me explain the entire progression system made in this game and how it relates to the main story. At the end of the intro, we are told that our raccoon character has bought a dumpster to live in. This serves as our access to the different worlds, and because we're dirty trash panda, our main goal is to steal as much garbage from these worlds as possible. The things we steal could be actual trash, it could be signs, it could be people. Upon entering the dumpster, we are greeted by a fourth dimensional being that controls the portal in and out of our dumpster, saying that we need to find more items around the world to unlock more worlds to find new things. Already, we, the player, are being told of how the game loop works, and we are sent on our merry way to the magical land of Norwich, and eventually, in time, to the city or the desert. From the first moment of this game, we are told to collect new and interesting things, making it easy to tell the game as a collectathon. Collecting is the game's story, the world, fucking humor to an extent. The game is a manic episode, much like this video, but unlike this video, the game is amazing, and it's constantly pushing what it means to be a video game. And it did, with its use of logic and its own world. This game starts on the idea of collecting objects in a beautiful world with constantly a silly tone, and they kept going with it. There's this wheel of cheese you can meet, for example, standing on the top of a hill. After talking to them, they start rolling down the hill whilst explosions start in their wake. It's utterly random, and without knowing the context of what has been said, or the knowledge of the Cooper Hill cheese rolling competitions, which is a real thing, by the way, go look it up, it just it follows its own logic. So much of this game boils down to the developers going, what would be funny here? Or how could we advert expectations? It's amazing. I mean, for a game titled Funny Raccoon Game, I would hope it's about a raccoon, and it better be at least a mischievous one, much less a funny one. Look, no matter what, this game is about collecting items. At Raccoon's core, you need to collect. It's what drives the story, with new areas only being explorable after you collect a certain amount of things from your previously explored worlds. Collecting is also what makes the world worth exploring to a certain extent, as every collectible is interesting in its own right. Some of them can even talk, considering how you can collect all the NPCs in this game. Anyways, back on the topic of genre blindness, to give a definition of genre blindness, for the context of a collectathon game, I would say that to be genre blind would include things like the non-player characters questioning why you're stealing all of their things, or the main cast trying to advert taking everything in the area, collecting things. These are ideas that are opposite to the goal or progression of the game and end up questioning the tropes of the entire genre. And that's all I can really say at this point. Without spoiling too much of the experience, go play it. It's worth it. You're going to love it, I can assure you. And with its constant aversion of the mainstream industry and its ideas, how it stays unique without the use of genre blindness, this game is truly a special one, implementing many aspects of other games quite sparingly, with its tone and logic that's unraveled by anything else really being made today. This game is my favorite fever dream, and I could not recommend it more highly. Thank you for watching. Have a very nice day.